Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you're all having a blessed Ramzan. So today, as promised, we're here with Jalal Curmally. A bit about Jalal. So Jalal is the head of HR at EFU Life Assurance, and he's been working since the past 15 years in diverse roles, including management consulting, solving complex business challenges and problems. So Jalal is into designing systems, implementing systems, and he enjoys all of that as well. So, welcome, Jalal. Welcome having you on board. It's great to have you on board, especially in these times. So, how are you? And how's
Well,
everything, friend?
well, assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thanks for having me, Aisha. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
So, a bit about yourself, what you've been doing since the past 15
This
years,
is
a bit about your introduction.
thank you. Your introduction was fine. You make me blush. I am, for my sins, the head of HR for EFU Life Assurance, and I've been in that role since 2015, May of 2015. So I'm actually coming up on my 5-year anniversary on the 5th of May. And before that, I was in the longest stretch in my career was with a management consulting firm, Sadat Murshid Associates.
Okay.
There I worked I started by working on business and strategy and managerial consulting and fell into HR. And that's where I actually learned how to practice HR. And then ultimately, when I left Sadat Heather, I left to take all these ideas that I had and see if I could implement them in a real world Pakistani HR framework. So, yeah.
Lovely. So today we are here to talk about hybrid workforce management. And what does the hybrid workforce management model entail? So what is it? What is the hybrid workforce management model?
What we understand from it is very simply, you will have some people physically on site in your office and some people working from home.
Okay.
As a percentage of your workforce. And aisa nahi ke, if you have 100 people, 98 people are in the office and 2 people are working from home. That's not a hybrid model. That's some people being absent for the day. What we are actually talking about here is a significant percentage.
Okay.
Unfortunately, right now, because of the COVID pandemic, for Pakistan, we don't have a clear definition. Looking at the trajectory of the pandemic in other countries, looking at what's happening in Pakistan, looking at the way the numbers are, this is not going anywhere anytime soon, unless we have a vaccine. So then the question that organizations now are asking themselves is, we can't wait for this to be over and we go back to normal. But what is the normal? Do we go back, do we go back to the old ways, or is there a new normal? The new normal that companies are trying to figure out right now, including EFU Life Assurance, is what we are calling a hybrid model, where significant percentages of your workforce, of your employees, are actually working from home, are home-based workers. They're not physically present in your office. However, they are conducting their same roles, responsibilities, and duties, and the same workload.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions based on the definition that you just shared. Firstly, do you have any examples of organizations kahin pe bhi duniya mein who have actually implemented this or who are in the process of implementing it?
There are many.
And okay.
There are many. You call them flexi-time models, you call them work from home models, you call them gig workers. The hybrid model has existed for years. The best implementation of that is through agile frameworks, or आजकल organizational agility and agile frameworks पे भी बहुत ज़्यादा काम हो रहा है. क्यों? क्योंकि you need that for a hybridized model. लेकिन ये तो, this is not new.
Yeah, that's not new.
हमारे यहाँ नया है. And one of the reasons why हमारे पास नया है, because Well, there's many reasons for that, but I think one of the main reasons for that is because we didn't have the infrastructure. Internet nahi tha. In order in this day and age to do proper agile frameworks, proper work from home, you need good, solid internet connectivity. And that's one lesson we've learned is कि भाई जितना हम शोर शराबा करते हैं पाकिस्तान के इंटरनेट का उसकी penetration नहीं है. A lot of people still have really terrible internet. But it's spreading. So as the awareness spread, as the necessity arose, and as internet penetration जो भी है जैसी भी है लेकिन है तो ना, all of a sudden then it seemed like an idea who even for Pakistan some time has come. Nadeem Beg is asking a question.
So we have questions. We'll take questions and answers towards the end. We'll do that towards the end of the session so that we can flow in a consistent way.
Right.
So एक और जो question जो मेरे ज़हन में आता है वो ये है कि in this model, how do you manage performance in terms of making sure that people do their tasks as assigned, the KPIs, they're being followed rigorously. How do you track their performance and make sure the accountability and the reward systems they are in place?
One lesson we learned immediately. The old rules for the work at home worker do not fully apply.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
पहले तो आसान था ना कि भाई इस काम का क्या हुआ, कुर्सी से उठे, बंदे के पास गए, हाँ बताओ क्या प्रोग्रेस है. Instant update, instant feedback, instant monitoring. If you are, say for example, if you're in your organization and you want to introduce a hybrid workforce model, you need amazingly robust processes and systems
already in place.
जिसके ऊपर top up किया जाए. Analytics and dashboards. I mean, it's just about as essential as an internet connection and a laptop. You need that. उसके बगैर बहुत मुश्किल है. Number two, in terms of management style, काफी, you have to change as a manager and as a leader. You have to change the way you approach things like delegation. You approach things like performance monitoring. पहले, say for example, अगर बंदा 9 to 5 or 9 to whenever आपके पास था ऑफिस में, you could say ये काम आज होना है, इस टाइम तक के करके दो मैं इंतजार कर. Yeah, that was a way of doing that. Or for a work for home employee, that person wakes up at 5 to 9, logs in at 9 o'clock. Boss, I'm here. We'll probably check his email at 10 and see, अच्छा ये काम है. And जवाब दे दिया तो दे दिया, नहीं दिया तो नहीं दिया. बॉस वो फोन दूसरे कमरे में था तो वो, but at the meantime घर work from home हो रहा है, work for home, that's also going on. And it's not as though that employee is distracted or is not working. He's not going to deliver that work for you at 5 o'clock. It'll come in at 10. It'll come in at 11, but it'll come. So, and then in the morning you wake up and it's there and it's sitting in your inbox and say, boss, it's done. And you look at the timestamp on the email. Now, I don't know whether he completed at 3 o'clock and sent it to me at 12 o'clock at night, or he did it and sent it to me at 12 o'clock at night. This pandemic has changed a lot of things for people. So we learned very early on that you have to take a different approach towards what constitutes performance, what performance means for you, for your team, for your department, for your company. And as a manager, you had to learn to become flexible enough to accommodate the employees as they themselves are struggling to adapt to a working from home model where these problems come in. In order to do that, you can't have the same old managerial style. You can't have the same approaches. So you definitely need a lot more flexibility. What we've just learned works for us is, say, we have, with the grace of God, we have very strong technology and very robust processes backing our core operational processes. So our underwriters, our claim examiners, etc., they all have buckets, personal buckets. A bucket में काम fill हो जाता for almost all the days of the month. And boss would just give the bucket and say, "Subah, ye tumhara bucket hai. Karke do. Is time tak karke do." Now, how he does it, when he does it, karke do. And sure enough, it would come, except on certain days where the employee knows for a fact that they have to be live and present online. For example, during monthly close or during fortnightly closings or monthly closings. Then they know that the workload is so extreme and so large that only by having everybody sitting and working live would the department ever be able to do the close on time. Because sales doesn't stop coming in. The sales are sending their cases to us. So for certain days, we learned that no, you have to use the old times. You have to use the old tricks. You have to use the old techniques. So as managers, as delegators, as leaders, you have to know कि accelerator पे पाँव कब रखना है और कब उठाना है, and for which process and for what time. When do you talk to an employee, or when do you look at a dashboard to monitor and track performance?
Yeah. I believe that is key. And another question that your response raises is that, so for a number of employees, the situation goes like this: they deliver something late, but then there is someone else who's dependent on them for that work. So in order for that work to be counted completed, the way team के dynamics में जो पहले काम हो रहा होता था, that is also suffering, because if someone is not picking up the phone, so जो दूसरा बंदा है जिसने इनपुट लेना है उस बंदे से, उसके ऊपर मजीद बिल्डअप करना है, what does that person do? So what would be the best way to deal with that?
दो चीजें. Number one, your team should be so strong that I, as a manager or a leader, should not feel the need to have to step in and say, "Hey, do this work. That person's waiting." The person who has the work, usko feel honi chahiye कि भाई, look, if I am late, my colleague, my team member will suffer. I need to do this work.
Exactly.
I should not feel the. I mean, with the grace of God, Nazar se bachai, I very rarely feel the need to have to step in to tell my team, "Hurry up and do this because that person is waiting." Number one, absolutely not. Number two, how are you as a manager communicating with your team? I'll give you an example. Here's what I tell my team. Look, we have our performance management, we have our scores, we have our everything. I've told you this before also. But there is one rule, one invisible performance measure in my team. It's not written down anywhere, but it's simply this: if someone in the team needs your help, don't wait for them to ask you. You know they need your help, and you don't help them. मुझसे बुरा कोई नहीं है. I don't care what your performance is. I will burn your performance appraisal to the ground in front of you. Now, the opposite for me is also true. Someone from the team needed your help. They didn't ask, or they asked. You dropped what you were doing just so you could help a team member out. You missed your work. Your deadline was gone. The work was terrible. No problem. As far as I'm concerned, you did an amazing job. We call that the invisible rule in my department. And we truly try to work together as a team following that rule. That said, in a hybridized framework, as a manager, as someone who is assigning work to the team, you have to be constantly thinking 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the process, and then making sure that the timeliness of the assigning of the work is correspondent to the deadline of the work. So you did not wait until the very last minute to assign somebody something.
Yes.
Knowing full well that people's work hours and schedules are very disrupted and disturbed and upsy-daisy right now. So if I know that something has to happen, say, for example, by Friday, I start talking about it on Monday, I assign it on Tuesday, knowing that somebody else can wrap this up by Thursday so that Friday, Saturday, 2 other things can happen. So when I sit down with the team, I have to do this, number one. Number two, we are now on a hybrid model in EFU Life. What we are learning is that old methods of delegation now also have to change. Pehle, you would assign someone a work and hold them responsible for the outcome or for the result. Now you have to hold people accountable for process steps.
Okay.
So you stop thinking just in terms of outcomes. You have to start thinking in terms of process steps. So say, for example, if you have a workflow that's cutting across 4 or 5 different segments, or either of a section, a department, or a team, and it's covering, say, 30, 40 steps, then you are thinking this particular section of the process has to be assigned here, and everybody knows exactly what the turnaround time, what their turnaround times are, what the next step in the process is, what the input outputs requirements are. So people are mentally tuned and ready and geared. And of course, your systems are also designed for that. There's multiple softwares that you can use to help you do this. Otherwise, just use Excel. Just use Excel.
From what I understand, from what you just said, firstly, communication is key, especially the way a manager communicates with his team and how detail-oriented the manager is. So it's also a lot about spelling out each and everything rather than thinking they will understand it on their own. So instead of leaving it to
it's not about spelling it out. Sorry to interrupt. Spelling out nahi hai. I mean, people know their jobs. They know their jobs better than the boss does, frankly. They know how to do it better than the boss does, in most cases, hopefully. It's about breaking it down. कि भाई, अच्छा, पहले ये काम पूरा ये ऐसे होता था, अब नहीं हो सकता. अब नहीं, इस तरह से हमारी जो आदत थी करने की, वो अब नहीं हो सकता. We have to change the way we are doing things. So now this person is responsible for steps A, B, C, D, and E. जैसे खत्म होता है, F, G, H, I, J goes to this person, and then K, L, M, N there, and you push it to the finish line, and then the entire team celebrates. That's the sort of communication now we need to be. Managers, at least, I feel, need to be doing. It works. It puts a lot of pressure on a manager, honestly speaking. It puts a lot of pressure on a manager because you're used to thinking big. You're used to thinking in terms of project, deadline, etc., etc. You're not getting into the nitty-gritty. You don't want the team to feel like they're being micromanaged. That's a great way to demotivate them. That's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is that the type of work that used to be delegated needs to now be more process focused than outcome focused. And in HR, to make it even simpler, recruitment करनी है. पहले मैं क्या करता था, recruiter को कहता था, इस department की recruitment करनी है, marketing को 2 लोग चाहिए, इस date तक के चाहिए, ये JD है, HOD से बात करो, जाओ recruit करो. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now I'm saying, here are the requirements. Here is the head of marketing is available on Zoom for you on this time. Find out what the requirements are. Then we as a team sit down, we look at the requirements, and I say, okay, team member number 1, you have the best internet. So you're doing the shortlisting, you're doing the initial screen, you're doing the interviews. Now that person number 1 is not the person who took the requirements, or maybe, or should be, or maybe is not, depending upon who's got how much work to do. Once the first screening comes in, the person number 2, you're going to office tomorrow, right? Yes, I am. Okay, schedule these interviews. These are the notes. Talk to person number 1, find out what the HOD comments were, what to look for and what to probe. Prepare the interview questionnaire in advance so that I can review it, get the HOD to approve it, and that you're ready for that. So if you understand, the process is broken. Person number 3, इन लोगों के 5 लोग के interviews हुए थे, ये 2 लोग shortlist हुए, इनके psychometrics करने. So person number 3 is doing the psychometric. Pehle, 1 person would be responsible for that entire life cycle and wrap it up in 21 days. Yeah, but now you have to break it up. You have to break it up.
And then you need to effectively delegate, know who's who, kiski kya strengths, and who would be able to deliver on what better, from what I understand. So that's also key. So for organizations where the teams are not that strong, and now especially in the COVID environment, अब तो हम सब remote working की तरफ जा रहे हैं, and we're operating remotely. So what do those managers do, or what can they do to strengthen their team bonding, especially in these times where pre-existing nahi hai team bonding?
सबसे पहले, if you are like everyone else, this I strongly recommend this. It worked for my team. Um, do a video chat, and for 1 hour or 40 minutes, if you're on Zoom for free, like most of Pakistan is on Zoom for free
Yeah.
right now. And don't talk about work. Just don't talk about work. 40 minutes, just gas. Um, if you're like me during the lockdown or even during hybrid, 10 o'clock in the morning, we have to get together as a team. And for the first 10, 15 minutes, we don't talk about work at all. We do a check-in. क्या चल रहा है?
क्या हाल
Jalal,
है?
हाँ, how are you doing? We said check in and everyone, and that's their cue कि भाई जो दिल की भड़ास होती है ना वो निकालनी होती है उस 5 मिनट में.
हाँ.
Jalal, I'm dying. I just can't wait to get out of the house. I'm depressed. Or, Jalal, Thande, it's great. I love it. The only thing I miss is my fiance. Otherwise, this is fantastic. I don't want to go back to work. And then the rest of the team is like, yaar, what? जो तो तुम रात में पानी में घोल के पीते हो हमें भी कुछ दे दो यार, because we want to feel so.
Yeah.
It gels people. Adversity, challenges, and these are times that are bringing that adversity, that stress, that challenge in our lives. Something that we were used to is gone. It's stressful. Every day you pick up the news, you are greeted by some really bad news. And if you are looking at Sindh, especially Karachi's numbers,
Yes.
every day, it's getting scary.
Yes.
So
Agreed.
people need that release. You need that release. If you, as a team lead, can help do that for your team and become a part of it. But pehle in these sessions, I wasn't saying anything. I would just sort of listen and say, okay, yeah, too bad. And then 3, 4 of those in the team started asking me, what about you? So then I started talking. And then the team goes, okay, well, Jalal, have you considered? And it started off like that. That's one thing. Second thing, so many trainers are now doing online team building activities. They're bringing out a lot of training material is entering the HR market right now on digital platforms to help people keep their teams together, help keep teams engaged digitally when they are remote, when they're geographically separated, even if they're separated in the city. Or in the future, in a hybrid case, where you have, say, about 60% of your team in the office, but 40% sitting at home. So all of that material is actually entering the market right now. So look into that.
So I feel at this point in time, it's very important to take charge as the manager, or would you leadership needs to be exercised in its truest form. It's about engaging, it's about empathy, it's just not about work. Okay, you just have that video session to give sign away orders, do that, and then you are just done with it. It's
Yeah.
about coming together and sharing that bond during adversity so that people feel whole again, that and
Share
experience
that
that sense of
experience.
wholeness. Yeah. So
Really share the
and I think if we execute the hybrid model that way, working from home and remote working, it is more likely to succeed if people still feel like a team, despite the fact that they're geographically dispersed or they're geographically apart. So although we are a collectivist culture, हमें बहुत आदत है एक दूसरे के साथ बैठ के काम कराने की. हम देख रहे होते हैं दूसरा बंदा काम कर रहा है and we are at peace कि हाँ ये काम कर रहा है. But
छुट्टा लगा लिया, चाय पी ली.
exactly.
These things count.
स्मोकिंग कॉर्नर में जाके ब्रेक ले ली, 2-4 बातें कर ली, कूलर के सामने जाके, वाटर कूलर के सामने जाके, चाय के ऊपर.
असल में काम का
All
मजा
of those
यही
things.
था ना.
Yeah.
असल मजा तो यही है. This is what keeps you going through the day.
Agreed. So going forward, do you think that remote working and hybrid workforce management, this is something which will actually become more relevant in the Pakistani context, even when the lockdown, like everything opens up and the lockdown is over, tab bhi ye relevant ho jayega? What do you think? Or things will just go back to the way they were?
वो कहते हैं ना, only a fool predicts the future. The optimist in me hopes we don't go back and that we embrace this as a new normal.
Okay.
The cynic in me says people will run and go overboard to try to go back to normal. And then what I really think is going to happen is time delay, slowly. Because you see, the cat is out of the bag. It's out there now. So slowly होगा. It's just companies के सामने सवाल अब ये है कि या तो अभी करके मार्केट को लीड कर लो and be recognized as the pioneer,
या
5, 6, 7 साल बाद follower बन जाओ and be known as a follower. More and more employees will get used to this, and then when they switch jobs, in addition to the money and everything, they'll say, okay, what are your flexi time and work from home options? And if you don't have one, and then slowly organizations will adopt. So realistically speaking, I think this is the adoption is going to happen. I don't think there is any going back now. But I also think that because the pendulum swung very hard this way, it's going to swing very hard that way, and then somehow slowly oscillate and come down.
Somewhere settle down in the middle.
Equilibrium
की state पे आके.
I challenge my colleague heads of HR. You can become a part of this new wave of workforce management and be a pioneer. Or you can be the head of HR that followed other heads of HR who implemented it before you.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense. Because it's all about right now who sees ahead first, who has a vision for the future at this point in time, and who takes the lead in implementing new things.
Asan nahi hai. This is not an easy discussion. No, and it's quite difficult to do.
There are a lot of people are in denial right now as well. They think that things will go back to the way they were before. They just have to wait the same period out, probably a month or two, और फिर सब कुछ वैसा का वैसा ही हो जाएगा, because of which they're not taking measures to actually address this effectively or come up with systems and policies and procedures for the long term rather than short term. I feel there's a lot of reactivity in the market rather than a proactive attitude towards building these sort of systems and processes which will last for a longer time.
You're absolutely right. Lekin, let's see what happens. This change came suddenly. Dunya raton raat badal gayi. We went to sleep. The world was one way. We woke up. It was completely different. Now, either you recognize the world has changed and choose to lead, or you choose to follow. Up to you. Lekin, let me just add one small thing here. Let's not get carried away by the excitement. Implementing a hybrid workforce model is ultimately not just an HR decision; it is a business decision.
It's a business decision.
You have to look at so many things before you can even begin to think about implementing. You have to look at your systems, your processes. You have to be very clear on what you want to achieve by implementing a hybrid workforce model, whether it's cost efficiency, market leadership, whether you're treating this as a part of your total rewards package. You have to know why you're doing it. What's in it for the company? What's in it for the employee? Is this a smart business decision to make? Are we looking at our operating overheads? Are we looking to revamp our compensation structures? Is it cost savings? Yeah. Be very clear कि आप अगर hybrid model implement कर रहे हैं तो क्यों कर रहे हैं, और वो सिर्फ HR का काम नहीं है. This is something that has to be done by the entire company. आपका पूरा process change होगा, आपकी management style change होगा, आपका culture change होगा, और culture को change करने के लिए, the saying ना, culture will eat strategy for breakfast.
Culture is strategy for breakfast, indeed.
So this is a change management implementation. और उसके लिए फिर you have to treat it as one.
And uske liye, I think it's change management and project management, a lot of different management models coming together as well. Because what I feel is कि लोग बहुत excited हो जाते हैं and they go about implementing new systems and models without mapping out the prerequisites for that. So एक जैसे let's say there's a checklist के okay, what do I need to have in place for this model to work? So earlier you mentioned कि we need to have solid processes in place, analytics चाहिए, dashboard चाहिए, उसके ऊपर hybrid model जो है वो implement करना आसान है. So if I were to ask you कि from the top of your head, what 3-4 prerequisites would be required before one starts thinking about this? So what would those be?
A leadership that has bought into it, a very clear description of what is to be achieved, how to achieve it, and a solid measurement system to know that when you have achieved it. So basically, why are you doing this? इससे हमें फायदा क्या होगा और हमें कब पता चलेगा कि हमने इसको अचीव कर दिया है? And a CEO, board of directors, and the N-1, a top tier that is completely 100% sold on doing this. Those are your first two criteria. Then you start looking into how mature are your systems, how mature are your processes, what technology is required both on the part of the organization and the employee. Because you could have the world's best technology, but if your employee is sitting on wo jo aajkal ghar pe cable internet chal raha hai, where they advertise 10 MB, they're giving you 56 kbps modem speeds, then yeah, your workforce model is going to work. So you also have to be clear on that. You have to be extremely clear. Not every position in the company by role also is suited for work from home. Some positions require physical presence. So are you doing a partial on, partial off? Are you doing a rotating shift where an employee spends maybe 3 days in the office, but then maybe 2 days at home? Does he get to pick them? Then there is, and the fourth thing is training, and feedback, performance management and feedback, performance management and feedback, and then training.
So again, leadership buy-in हमेशा key होता है किसी भी change management initiative की success के लिए. So I feel that's the key. Everyone needs to be together. They need to be on the same page, and then it has to trickle down from the top all the way down, towards the other levels. So I feel that is key first of all.
Absolutely.
So now we'll move towards our questions and answers. Is that fine with you, Jalal? So we have a couple of questions over here. So the first question is, what would make
companies
some staff working from home in the new normal era?
What would make companies keep some staff working from home? What were you talking about? Now you have to be very clear on what you want to achieve. For example, it differs, Nadeem, from company to company. As I said, it could be a part of your total rewards package. So all of a sudden it becomes a benefit. Maybe you are looking to reduce your overheads.
And I feel, Nadeem, if you can also clarify your question, because what I understand from your question is that you are asking कि कौन सी jobs or किस type of employees को work from home के लिए they're more suited as compared to coming to the office. Is that what you're trying to ask, Nadeem? If you can please ask again. So as Jalal just mentioned, some jobs are more suited to working towards home as compared to others, because वो जो jobs होती है उनको physical presence चाहिए होती है, and shifting them onto the digital model would make them quite inefficient. हो तो शायद जाए, but inefficiency बहुत ज़्यादा आ जाएगी, and probably effectiveness would be compromised.
Error prone हो सकता है if the process is not solid.
Can you give an example of some jobs which would be difficult to be shifted to the remote model?
Manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, of course.
Some jobs in finance, not in finance, in accounting. HR in our department. It's very difficult to do a remote interview and get a good sense of a candidate. Yes, there are tools that you can use, but then ultimately, and unless you're doing all of your interviews sitting in a restaurant and then billing the company, in which case I will not be signing your expense vouchers, you have to come into the office. You'll have to look at it. Nadeem, if you are trying to say कि कौन सी नौकरियां, which jobs, there's no hard and fast rule here. It'll differ. What is an absolutely essential, no questions, hard and fast, you have to be in the office 24/7, 365, varna the company will die position for me is maybe a complete work from home position for you. For example, the COO, our COO, does have VPN access. So he can, our GM operations has VPN access. And at the time when we were locked in, we were reviewing cases for alterations, renewals, claims, new business premiums were being, was coming in, new policies were being issued. We have IBM's FileNet, so it was possible for us to digitally view the documents, digitally attest and sign them. We have, and then process those cases. So that's what I mean when I say, in an ordinary context, you would have to be in the office. You would absolutely have to be in the office. But that's what I mean when I say your systems have to be mature and your processes have to be really robust. We had good, mature systems. We've been running EFU Life Operations as a paperless environment. So we've been running on a paperless environment for a while. We're used to it. So
the transition is obviously easier. But even for companies who are not there yet in terms of maturity of processes and having structured systems in place, I feel instead of waiting out and waiting for all of this to pass, they can also start taking steps towards making their processes more mature, digitalization, and shifting towards this model. Because as you also mentioned earlier, this is something which might not go away completely for a good amount of time.
No.
That's what we see.
No. It'll go away when we have a vaccine. When all 220, 230 million people in Pakistan, or a relatively high percentage thereof, get that injection, get that tika, then it'll start going away. Not before. Look, COVID-19 as a disease is here to stay. It's here to stay. It's not going to get
we need to adapt accordingly, and
we just need to
lifestyles ko adjust karna hai, whether it's work, whether it's personal life, to make space for COVID-19. That's one way I can find.
We will go back, inshallah, to normal. It's not going to happen next week. It's not going to happen by Eid, and it's not going to happen because the provincial or federal government said, okay, open up. It's not going to magically go away. You're still going to need to take care until that vaccine comes out. That's the bad news. Good news is, ta-da! There are a lot of vaccines currently in development. I think Oxford just started primate testing. And I think there was one company in the US that is shifting towards very limited human testing right now. So there are two potential vaccines already very, very fast and very, very close to, say, the final stages of testing. Kal ko agar, even if we get like this magic miracle announcement, testing successful, we got the dosage, we have the cure, fantastic, you're 6 to 9 months away from global distribution.
Exactly.
6 to 9 months away.
So 2020 began, I think part of 2021 as well. And in terms of business, that means a lot, because every single day, if you don't adapt, you lose a lot of money. So now moving to the next question. So Uzair is asking, can you explain different types of leadership styles which can be implemented in hybrid workforce management?
Different leadership styles that existed that worked well in your culture and for different managers will continue to be relevant. It's not a question of leadership style as much as it is a question of leadership, period. Leadership has to be there. Style can differ. One thing is Danda, Seth style, that
micromanagement, authoritative, all of that
the
is gone.
authoritative style that was never recommended, and even more so now, it won't work.
So now it's all about getting together as a team. जो आपका flexible working style, and I would say democratic leadership style. अगर leadership styles की बात करते हैं, laissez-faire in old school leadership terminology.
I would not say democratic leadership. I wouldn't go that far, because ultimately somebody has to make a call. Somebody has to end the conversation and lay out a very clear path and say, this is it, this is where we're going. So up to democratic, yes, but up to a point. But not beyond that, up to a point. But to answer Uzair's question in one sentence, style nahi, leadership hona chahiye. Leader hona chahiye.
Thanks, Jalal, for that. Next question we have from Adil Ahmed. So he's asking, do you think COVID-19 is a deliberate move to force a largest segment of the world's population online? Interesting question. So yes, Jalal, what do you think?
I'm not a fan of conspiracy theory. Basically because I want them to be true, but I also realize that in order for it to be true, such a significant percentage of the world's population would have to be in on the grand plan to make it happen, that it just becomes implausible for it to be pulled off without failing or somebody finding out. However, I don't think COVID-19 is a deliberate move on anyone's part. It happened because we as human beings are encroaching more and more and more into the natural world, and the diseases that previously human beings were not exposed or subject to because of our distance from the natural world, we are now getting exposed to those diseases: SARS, MERS, COVID-19. So if anything, it's not a deliberate move by anyone to achieve anything. It is a natural consequence of human action. We opened the doors for a disease that used to exclusively infect animals, infect human beings. And look at what it did to us. And this isn't the first time. There was another disease that absolutely devastated the human population that was, up until recently, an animal disease, and then it crossed into humans. You know what I'm talking about? HIV, AIDS. It's an animal disease until it crossed from primates into humans. So this isn't the first time we've done this, Adil Sahab. It's just that this is the most recent.
Okay, so next question we have is from Uzair, and he's asking, work from home has made work flexible, but at the same time more cumbersome. How should employees and employers both work together to address that?
Communicate. If work is becoming cumbersome, there's a problem in the process, or there's a problem in the delegation. One of these two areas you have to look at. Sorry. So talk to your manager, talk to your HOD. या तो प्रोसेस में मसला है, या फिर the way the work is being managed, delegated, distributed, उसमें मसला है. काम है. It has to happen.
I also feel that जो work life balance वाली जो बात थी, that has become even more difficult to achieve. I think yes, and I feel that has become more difficult to achieve. Because, for example, someone from my family is also working a 9 to 5, but it's no longer a 9 to 5. He's sitting in front of the screen at 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, and he's saying, my manager just gave me this assignment an hour ago, and I need to deliver it by tomorrow morning, like right in the morning. And the way the manager communicated is, it would be great if you can, get it done by 10 a.m. So the manager is requesting, but also saying that I need it by 10 a.m. So ये चीज बहुत ज़्यादा common हो रही है. Another friend of mine, she was telling me that they've been sitting in meetings at like 1:30 a.m. and 2 a.m. And I'm like, what? I mean, meetings at 1:30 a.m., 2 a.m. That doesn't make sense anymore. I mean, how do you manage for that?
Okay, so I think that's okay. Thank you for. Sorry, Uzair, I misunderstood. Thanks for that, Aisha. Whew. Okay, there's two aspects to this. Manage your work, manage yourself. Three aspects: manage your work, manage yourself, and then manage your boss. We talked about early on that, look, for a successful hybrid model where you have a percentage of your people working from home, you have to change your mindset in terms of what to delegate, when to delegate, what deadlines to set, when to monitor, how to monitor, and be constantly giving feedback. We talked about all of that. So let's get that out of the way, number one. The other thing is managers, if you're asking about how employers can make work less cumbersome, managers need to respect their team's time.
Very important.
Time
very,
management.
Very important. Yes.
Time management. I would say, yeah, try to stick to your 9 to 5 regular working hours as much as possible. And then once you reach a certain time, try to make sure that your work is done by that time and your boss knows and you've reported, and then switch off. Switch off. And the boss must respect that you've switched off. कोई कयामत नहीं आ जाएगी. And अगर boss के भी ऊपर से चीज आ रही है, then the boss needs to feed back and protect his team. Otherwise, why are you the boss? Why are you the leader? Similarly, employees need to ensure that if they are sticking to a certain time period, whatever that time period is, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, then they are productive in those 10, 12 hours. One of the reasons why bosses are freaking out in this working from home situation is because productivity is dropping. Yes, employees are not to blame for all of it, but they are to blame for some of it. And for that part that you can manage, you should be managing. You have an obligation and a responsibility to your employer, who is, with the grace of God, in these very, very troubling economic times, still giving you a job and paying your salary.
Yeah.
We advise our employees at EFU Life, we've done certain things. For example, we taught them how to do sprints. Work for 20 minutes, break for 5. Work for 30 minutes, break for 10. Do that. Do that for 2 hours, break for 1 hour. घर के जो काम है, सौदा लाना है, झाड़ू पोछा करना है, जो खाना पकाना है. We've all done that.
Yeah.
We've all cooked, and our wives have had to eat our cooking. We've all done that.
Finally.
You can. I make a great sandwich. Take care of that, and the boss needs to understand that the work will still happen and that there is an obligation there, and you are doing your best. And the way to make the boss understand that, you have to be communicating. That is the other reason why bosses freak out. The communication, the feeding back to the managers just suddenly vanished. You see, managers rely a lot on just small snippets of conversation, just by looking at someone, hi, yaar, kaam ho raha hai. So they know that it's going to happen. All
so
of a
what
sudden,
they're looking out for is cues.
Employees, to make this work, you need to be over communicating with your boss. Boss, ye maine ye kar diya hai. This happened. Make a phone call, send him a WhatsApp message. Trust me, I promise you, you will have less and less of this cumbersome feeling. By coming together, adopting these professional practices, I think you will find work management going a lot smoother.
That's key. Over communication for employees. छोटी चीजें blue tick करके message boss का नहीं छोड़ना. फौरन जवाब देना, because these are the social cues right now, which are setting the tone, and which either makes your boss feel comfortable with you or uncomfortable with you. So it's up to you how you manage that comfort level. And these little things matter all the more now because visibility nahi hai. The
As you said,
transparency is not.
manage your work, manage yourself, manage your boss.
Secondly, I also feel that employees also need to take responsibility कि अगर इन हालात में कंपनी ने आपको रखा हुआ है and you're still on board, so you need to step up as well and play your part the way you were doing when you were in office. So just because you're working from home doesn't mean कि आप over relax हो जाए and your colleagues are calling you and you don't take their call, and you know their work depends on your work because it's a chain at the end of the day. So employees के लिए बहुत important है to assume that sense of responsibility as well rather than just shifting all the blame to their managers. So
And
it takes
managers can be more understanding, they can be more flexible,
Mm,
and they can praise a little bit more.
indeed.
In fact, this is a good time for managers and leaders to show to their teams that they're human beings. I think they'll have an easier time managing, and employees will have an easier time relating to their managers.
Because globally empathy का जो concept है, it's on the rise. Like it's become more relevant and more widely talked about now than it was ever before. Firstly, or agar in times maybe you cannot act as a human being and you cannot have that decency or that empathy to understand कि भाई दूसरा बंदा घर में बैठा हुआ है probably might be having some mental health issues as well, because a lot of people are also experiencing that feeling of being stuck. So
They could be having emotional issues,
yeah,
yeah, related to this
emotional,
lockdown.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe having conversations besides work, as you said earlier, can actually build a more lasting and a sustainable relationship. जिसमें productivity भी increase हो जाए, people feel better, they're happier with their bosses, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, easy.
One last question that we will take now, because we're running short on time, is that Farooq Sheikh is asking, how have you achieved great success throughout life? Please share your precise learnings.
I
Top of your
got,
head, Jalal. I know it's a very elaborate question, but top of your head.
I don't know. Grace of God, really, honestly. Somebody
Yeah.
was praying for me, the grace of God. I did something to earn somebody's prayers, and it was the grace of God Almighty, honestly speaking. If I had to give you some advice, become interested in something. I'm an MBA in marketing from IBA. I got into HR because I was interested in it. I got into consulting and I stayed in consulting for 12 years because it was interesting, and I left when it stopped being interesting. And I've always followed my interest. And the third advice I'd give you is make your life difficult. Look for a challenge. You'd surprise yourself. You'd learn so much about yourself, and no better feeling than knowing you've succeeded. So look for challenging roles, look for roles that interest you, try to do things in your personal and professional life that broaden your horizons, and pray. Work hard and pray.
Indeed.
My success,
All
I don't know.
right. I feel ये दो तीन चीजें जो होती हैं, work hard, give your best, be interested, persistence, perseverance, and prayer, be a good human being. I think ये सब combine करके they set the tone for success in the long term. Again, short term gratification, if you're looking for it, then obviously you'll have to
Yeah,
change the way you look at things, because all of these things pay long term, not short term. May you might not see the results, but long term may you do eventually.
agreed. And now, at the risk of boring your audience, I think there's a good question here from Fahad. So, can we just talk about that for 5 minutes?
So Fahad is saying employee motivation is becoming a greater challenge, particularly for companies who are in cost-cutting mode in view of COVID-19 challenges. How do you keep those employees motivated who have received a recent pay cut purely on the basis of strategy and not on account of their performance?
Very valid, very pertinent, need of the hour question here for HR professionals and for professionals as a whole. But I want to make one correction. It's not just a question of strategy, it's a question of survival. If the revenue streams are not there, you're not paying salaries. And if the money is not there, you have to. It is the cold, cruel calculus of capitalism. Get rid of 10 people so you can pay 90. Or ask 100 people to take half their pay but keep their jobs. Number one. So it's not about strategy. Without going further, it's no HR head, no HR professional wants to be in a department that has to make this call. And honestly speaking, no CEO does either.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to survival, then the company's survival, then you do what you need to do to survive. It's not about strategy. No one's thinking strategy right now. We're all trying to survive. Now, suppose without that's all I'm going to say about that particular correction and topic. Now, how do you keep these employees motivated? They've lost earnings, but they've got their jobs. You need to emphasize that. It could have been much worse.
Attitude.
But you need to communicate, not by saying, "Arey yaar, naukri to hai na, khush ho jao." We haven't thrown you out, be happy. That's the wrong way, wrong message to send. You need to be communicating with a lot of empathy. They've lost earning power, but they've retained a job. That means they've retained the hope that once things start, the pendulum starts swinging the other way and the revenues start coming in, there is hope for the future. When you give employees a pay cut and ask them to take a pay cut, you must also do it in a way that shows the employee what the recovery and resumption of regular pay process and plan will look like. So even if you don't have a dedicated date, because nobody does, you have to have a plan. So employees know that when this thing happens, when we start hitting these numbers, this is how we will resume, this is how we are going to retire our debt. And senior people, very senior, like the top level people, need to be communicating this. Number one. Number two, ideally, employees down the line should be the second or the third people taking the pay cuts. The pay freezes and the pay cuts should be happening at the top tier first. Right?
Agreed.
So, assuming that that's exactly what happened, if the pay cuts have reached the level of the average employee, that should give an indication of just how bad the situation has now become. And employees need a sense of that. Don't hide anything from them. Tell them flat out, tell them the truth. This is not the time to become shy about company secrets or numbers or ye cheezein hum employees ko nahi batate, whatever.
Very important. Yes.
Communicate openly, communicate frankly with an eye on the future, and do it with empathy and with compassion. Be gentle, but be firm with the truth. People will understand. If you do just that, you won't have to ask them.
Yes.
They'll volunteer.
In fact, to validate what you just said, एक change management पे study भी थी, and the paper was published like around a decade ago. और उसमें जो एक simple advice जो दी हुई थी for change management to be successful was कि the top leadership constantly need to communicate with clarity. Okay, what is it that they're doing? What are the changes that they're bringing? How they plan to go about it? And this is what the future is going to look like for everyone. because that simple act of engaging people and making them part of the conversation rather than isolating them, that plays a pivotal role, I feel, in raising their motivation levels. कोई motivation इतनी कोई uh, वो complicated चीज नहीं है, छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं which I feel either pump up the motivation or just demotivate.
And employees will appreciate that you're being upfront and honest with them. शुरू में जब आप communicate करेंगे तो शायद demotivation होगी, थोड़ी सी pushback होगा. For something like this isn't एक memo आ गया, एक WhatsApp message आ गया CEO से, पूरी company पे एक email छूट गई, and that's
Corporate communications का वो जो एक flashy email आ गया, and that's it.
This
That's
is something that you have to communicate again and again and again and again, and each time more and more people will understand.
Agreed.
And then people will step forward. You'd be surprised. If you just give, it's been one of the most rewarding aspects of my career in HR have been that if you just ask people when times are tough and say, look, the company needs you, they stand up and say, okay, what do you want? What do you need? They will volunteer themselves. You won't have to assign work or delegate or anything.
Yeah.
They'll do it themselves.
खुद से आएगा. Intrinsic motivation जो होती है, it will come from within.
If you
because
believe in
at the end of the day,
people will believe in you. But coming back to his demotivation thing, it's unavoidable. So you can't be afraid of it. It's unavoidable. It's going to happen, and people are going to be demotivated. You cannot motivate them. You have to give them everything they need to motivate themselves. आपकी जेब से पैसे जा रहे हैं, I can tell you all the beautiful kahanis in the world. You will not be motivated by them. क्यों? क्योंकि ultimately आपकी जेब खाली है, हल्की है.
Yes.
But if you give the employee a clear path and you tell them what's going to happen and you tell them the truth of the situation, you don't hide anything, and ask them for their help and then do it again and again and again, what you are doing is that you're giving the employee everything they need to slowly raise their own motivation levels.
True. And I feel at this point in time, this has become all the more relevant. और उसके बगैर I feel there's no middle ground. You cannot feed people lies and expect them to be motivated, because at the end of the day, everyone's like sharp enough. Most people are sharp enough that they understand what's really happening. So you can't exactly feel that you or say you can fool people with your words and your riddles, and they'll all be okay with it. आप उनको एक pill दे के सुला नहीं सकते. You have to be realistic.
And ultimately, thank God Fahad is only asking the question about a salary cut. He's not talking about layoffs.
And I feel people who are going through all of this, उनके लिए सब mentally strong होना बहुत जरूरी है, because your personal power at the end of the day resides in your mind. And if you tell yourself a certain story over and over and over again, it becomes your reality. So although this is happening and this is bad, but uske bawajood, keeping yourself personally motivated, I feel it's a responsibility of each and every individual all the more now. You can just not leave your motivation to external factors anymore, because they might not be looking so good in the future or at present.
Time for employees to understand that, and until then, I'm in Fahad's corner on this one. Organizations will have to play a role. Before we conclude, to anyone and everyone who's watching, can I make an appeal?
Yes, I can just say from my behalf, but I'm sure we would like to hear you out on this.
Yeah, you can't. Okay. To my colleagues in HR and to my colleagues in organizations who may be watching and listening, the scale and pace of unemployment that this COVID-19 pandemic has unleashed on Pakistan is insane. If you have the budget, if you have a vacancy in your department, if your payrolls can support it, consider hiring. Now more than ever, whenever it's affordable, wherever it's possible, for whatever salary that you can, consider hiring someone. It's now almost, or it is actually, giving someone a livelihood in these days has become an act of charity.
Indeed.
A lot of people are going to suffer. And that's not something that's becoming clear right now, but the scale and the pace with which people are losing their jobs. As an HR professional who's watching from the sidelines, it's frightening. So if you can help give someone a job, please consider it. End of pitch.
Thank you so much for this. I think a much needed reminder, because even in the midst of this chaos and turmoil, there are some industries who can actually afford to hire more because unke products ki demand upar ja rahi hai. So for them, yes, all the more important, and that's the best act of charity right now.
Yeah. I had a good time. I hope everybody had a good time too.
Yes, I hope everyone had a good time. Here's just an effort on my part to bring you people who can add some value to whatever you're experiencing right now, and
Good job.
answer the questions which are floating in your head, because इस वक्त सबके दिमाग में बहुत सारे सवालात हैं, and there's a lot of misinformation circulating. तो बहुत important है to bring people who can give a mature perspective, who can share like mature insights on all of this, ताकि कुछ clarity situation में आए and कुछ confusion clear हो. So thank you, Jalal, for contributing to this.
I've missed our talks.
Yes, indeed. Same, likewise. So thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you to our audience, whoever was listening. I hope we have answered your questions. We try to level best. These are not simple answers. So इनको एक जुमले में या दो जुमले में summarize करना would also not be fair. So without going into too much detail, I hope we have addressed your questions over here. So take care, Jalal. So we'll end this session for now. And
thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Aisha. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And everyone else, let's gather on Saturday with Tina and William. They're also waiting for your questions when it comes to online marketing and becoming successful online. As we steer towards digitalization and the pace of digitalization is accelerated, mastering online is important for now and for the future. So please join us on Saturday. Ask your questions and let's see what they have to share as well. So thank you and take care, everyone. Good night and have a good evening. Thank you.
Good night. Good evening.